Hello dear students. Module 6, Grammar. This time we are going to work on the passive. Voices of the verb. What is the active voice? What is the passive voice? In English grammar, verbs have 5 properties: person, number, voice, mood, and tense. And here we are more concerned with the voice. The 2 grammatical voices are active and passive. The active voice means that a sentence has a subject which acts upon its verb, while in the passive voice means that a subject is a recipient of a verb's action. Now you can understand better when you see the structure. So, how to form the passive? We need the verb to be in its appropriate tense, in this case present tense and past tense, because we are going to work on these 2 tenses only. And then after the verb to be, which is example are in the present simple, then we add the past participle of the main verb, which can be regular, like this, watered, for example, or irregular, like made, for example. What's the difference between active and passive voice? Active voice means that the subject, like here, Anna, for example, waters the flowers. So the subject is acting on the object, and this is the object. And as you can see, this is in the present simple, waters. When we put it in the passive voice, it becomes like this. So the flowers become the subject of the passive voice, and then we look at the verb, which is in the present simple. So we decide, we have to understand what is the tense of the main verb. So this is in the present simple. And then we take the verb be in the present simple, like here, which is are. And then we take the past participle of the main verb. Waters becomes watered. And in the end of the sentence, we can write the agent. This is the agent, the one who does the action. Example, Anna. Who waters the flowers? Anna. And this is, so as you can see, present simple. Another example, the chicken crossed the road. This is in the past simple. And the procedure is the same in the all tenses, whatever you have to work on. So the road here becomes a subject, and in the active voice the road is an object. So we take the road here, the subject, and then we check the verb, the main verb. In this time this is in the past simple, and we take the verb be in the past simple, which is was, for the third person singular, and then this time we repeat the verb crossed, because it's a regular verb and it takes ed. So crossed, was crossed. And in the end, the agent by the chicken. So who crossed the road? The chicken. Here you can also see again how to change the voices from this time from active to passive in this case. So we have a sentence in active, which is the dog, as you know, is the subject, chased, which is the verb, and the object, the squirrel. The dog chased the squirrel. Now we take the squirrel and put it in the beginning of the passive voice, and it becomes a subject of the passive voice. Then, as I told you before, the verb chased is in the past simple, so we take the verb be into the past simple, which is was, and we only repeat this verb because it's regular. If it was irregular, there are chances that you should have changed it. So the squirrel was chased by the dog. So the dog is the agent, the one who does the action. Now, how to change from passive, a sentence from passive to active. Here we have a passive sentence. The Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. And it's the subject, the verb, and the object. When we have a sentence like this in the passive and we want to change it into active, we have to take the object and put it in the beginning of the sentence, which becomes the subject. Now, Leonardo da Vinci painted. So this verb is in the passive form. We only take the painted, like here. So we omit the was because this is the part of the passive form. So we take only painted. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa. Tenses in the passive. So the passive voice is not a tense, it's a voice. And it can be used in all tenses of English language. Like you can see, as you can see, present simple, past simple, future, present, past continuous, etc. But this time we are going to work only in the present simple and past simple. Present simple passive. We have a sentence in the active voice. Example. So you already know that Joanna is the subject, waters is the verb, and the plants is the object. Now we will take this sentence and turn it into the passive. Let's see. The object becomes the subject of the passive sentence, the plants. Then we check the verb, which is in the present simple, as you can see. Here is the verb are in the present simple, which means the verb be, and the past participle of the main verb. This is the main verb. And then we include the agent, which is by Joanna. So the plants are watered by Joanna. Okay, this was the present simple. Now let's see the past simple passive. Okay, subject Joanna, verb watered. So we have the same sentence intentionally. And this time watered is in the past simple. It's not waters. Okay, so Joanna watered the plants. Subject, verb, object. Now, in the passive voice, the plants becomes the subject. The verb watered becomes were watered because the plants are in plural, and the were is the verb be in the past simple, and this is the past participle of the main verb. Okay? And Joanna comes in the end of the sentence, like an agent. The plants were watered by Joanna. Usage. We use the passive voice when the person or people doing the action is or are unknown, unimportant, or obvious from the context. Let's see some examples. The glass was broken. Here, we don't know who broke the glass. The decision was announced yesterday. Who announced this decision is unimportant. That's why we don't put the agent here in the end of the sentence, like before. Next usage. When the action itself is more important than the person or people doing it, as in headlines, for example, newspaper articles, formal notices, advertisements, etc. Example, hundreds of buildings were damaged by the earthquake. And the last use, to make statements more formal or polite. Example, wedding ceremonies are held in the city hall. This is a formal speech. This glass wasn't cleaned properly. In this case, when we don't want to tell someone that he didn't or she didn't clean the glass properly, we use the passive because it's more polite than saying you didn't clean the glass properly. Some examples. Okay, bananas are adored by monkey. A lot of corn is grown in Iowa. The flowers are watered by Anna. My laptop was stolen. The door was left open. The announcement was made by the president, and she was offered some flowers. As you can see here, in some sentences we don't have the agent, and in some sentences we have the agent. And in the end, we have to mention some verbs which can take two objects, such as bring, tell, send, all these verbs, and there are more than these. Example, he offered her some flowers. So this sentence has two objects, her and some flowers. And then we can make two passive sentences out of these two objects. First one, her becomes she, so she was offered some flowers. And the second passive is, we take the second object, some flowers, which is, in other words, indirect object. So this becomes a subject of the passive. Some flowers were offered to who? To her, like here, her. The only difference is that here we have the noun in plural and we have to take the verb be in plural, but the tense is the same and the verb is regular, as you can see, we just repeated the verb. But if it was an irregular verb, then you should change its form. And some verbs which do not take an object, they are these. So with these verbs, we cannot form a passive sentence. Okay, thank you for listening.